I'm not going there on that. But what I was going to tell you was, had the phone call, we brought him in, and they did a few things with him, and then Jerry Jarrett had put me with Andy, so I was with him for a couple of years, but Andy was great. We had a separate dressing room away from everybody else, but he was doing yoga back then before he even knew what yoga was really about. But two people he wanted to do every week. He loved the Nature Boy, Buddy Rogers, his favorite wrestler. And also, I'd have to take him Monday night after we got through wrestling. We'd have to go by Graceland, Elvis's place. So we'd have to drive all the way out there to look at the same fence, the same thing, week after week after week after week, every Monday night. But I remember one time we were in a restaurant. Back then, it was a big deal for us to eat at Shoney's, or Denny's back then. That was the big thrill for us.
That's when you made it wrestling, you go to Shoney's?
And the Waffle House, of course.
Oh,
the wrestler's favorite restaurant. Yeah.
Covered and smothered, brother.
So we went to a restaurant. Andy and I did the matches. We stayed at the end, so we didn't want to have anybody hurt the car, right? So we left and went to Shoney's, and it was open late. And when we got there, the little waitress came over and she said, "Jimmy Hart, can I get your autograph for yours too, Andy?" And I gave her mine. Andy didn't give her his. She walked to the back and I said, "Andy, man, you should have done that." He goes, "Why?" And I said, "Because you never know what might wound up in our food if we don't do it." So Andy jumped up immediately, ran to the back, followed her back to the kitchen, said, "Let me give you an autograph." So, but it was great being with Andy, man. He was just awesome to be with. That whole territory back then was such a thrill for us. It was such a great time.
One of the famous scenes from Memphis Heat, which is an amazing documentary. You can probably grab it here at the High Spots table. After Lawler did the pile driver, Andy Kaufman's laying in the ring, and the ref says, "All right, we got to get you out of the ring." And he says, "You got to get an ambulance." And this was Memphis. You guys didn't have the money like the WWE, and they said, we can't, that's $500. And he says, "I'll pay for it." Ref goes over to Lawler. "We got to get him a rep. We got to get an ambulance." Lawler says, "We can't afford it." He says, "Andy said he'll pay for it." He says, Call an ambulance.
Call 911.
And it was a great deal, too, because it made all the news. It made the news around the world.
Stayed in the hospital for 48 hours in transit.
Yep,
Think about that. That's our so-called regional territory, doing an angle or storyline that gets national attention, and then raising the bar even further with the Kaufman-Lawler incident on David Letterman. Something, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's unheard of. Even today to have that type of response.
And then another thing you mentioned was going out to eat. I remember reading or listening to Gary Hart interview. He said he'd have to go grocery shopping late at night. When you were the most hated man in Memphis, how was it going out? I mean, could you go out and shop? Did you have to wait? Did you have to have guys with you to protect you?
Well, what happened with us, Jerry Lawler was the main force in Memphis. Whether he was a heel or babyface, either one, he was the draw.
Not to cut you off, explain to everybody how big Lawler was in Memphis at that time.
Well, you know, before I started, my big heroes were like Jackie Fargo and a guy named Sputnik Monroe and all the guys, Sputnik and all that. So when I was in high school, I used to walk about 3 miles from where I lived to stand outside of the Ellis Auditorium to sell Cokes at night. So Mr. Coffee would come out and he'd go, "I'll pick you. So I would be out there whether it was rain or cold or whatever, and I got to go in and sell Coca-Cola's, a little tray of Coke. So you got 35 cents a tray. So if you sold 24 bottles of Coke, then you got 35 cents. So I sell my 5 tray quotas at night, pick up I think about $1.50. If somebody's counting it up, I don't know if that's right or not, but about $1.50 a night. But I got to watch the main event. And I loved watching the main event. It was Sputnik Monroe against a guy named Billy Wicks. And every night they would fight for this Cadillac, week after week after week. But that was such a thrill for me, but that got me hooked on the wrestling business. Of course, then after that, I was part of a group called the Gentrys. We had a million-seller record called Keep On Dancing, went on tour with Dick Clark and did all that for so many years. But then I got a call from Jerry the King Lawler. And he was putting together a wrestling album, so he asked me to come over and sing on it. So I did. And he said, "You know what, I play softball and touch football on Sundays." He said, "You played ball in school?" I said, "Yeah, I did." And so we became pretty good friends. One thing led to another. I started doing promotion for the company. And then all of a sudden, the next thing you know, I managed the King in Memphis, Tennessee, and cutting songs for Jimmy Valiant on music and stuff. So it was a great run for me. But what happened, Jerry Lawler broke his leg playing football. And Jeff's daddy, Jerry Jarrett, had called me and he said, "Were you playing football?" And I said, "No." He said, "Because if you were, you're going to be fired because our whole territory is going to depend on what we do the next 6 or 7 months." And he said, what we're going to do, we're going to try to make you the hottest thing in Memphis. Before that, I was just kind of standing behind the king, chewing gum, going, that's right, king, that's right, king. So we came in, we crowned a new king of wrestling on Saturday TV, and the famous lines that got my jaw broke later on, for real, was, what do you do when a horse breaks his leg? You shoot him. Jerry Lawler's no use to Jimmy Hart anymore. So that was our big line that we started. And we had I managed Paul Ellering back then. We switched him over. I had Jimmy Valiant. We switched him to a babyface. And before you know it, we had a great run for that 7 or 8 months till the king came back. But it was kind of crazy.
Yeah, what was that like though, going out in public when you were that hated in Memphis?
Well, we just really didn't do it very much.